Here's a funny story. As I was setting up to do this recording, I found myself saying, wait, imposter syndrome, are you sure you're like the right person to talk about this? And I was like, wait a minute. I think I'm the perfect person to talk about this. I'm sure that most of you are familiar with the concept of imposter syndrome. I mean, as a concept, it's been spoken about for a while. But just to make sure we're on the same page, it is this really strange phenomenon where in an environment where you are, empirically and evidently, an expert at what you do, your brain throws a spanner in the works and says, wait a minute, why are they trusting you with this? I mean, are you the right person for the job? Which, as you can imagine, can be quite debilitating. So whenever I have looked into the subject and read articles about it or videos on it, everyone paints it with a negative brush, which it obviously is. You're basically, throwing yourself into this chasm of self-doubt, and it's not good for you. It's not good for your self-esteem. Now, I'm sure that, as is the case with most things connected to the brain, people experience imposter syndrome across the spectrum. So some people may have a very subtle, experience of it, and some people like me have a pretty strong and evident experience of it. To be clear, it's not a tap that's always on. There are days when I'm perfectly fine, and there are these sudden moments, like similar to a panic attack, where you suddenly get these moments of doubt at a time when you shouldn't be getting them. And that can throw you off your game. And for me, the worst thing and the worst possible outcome of imposter syndrome is the potential of somebody in that environment with a narcissistic personality picking up on that. And trust me, they know how to sniff that out. They can sniff it out from a mile. And that is possibly the worst thing that could happen to somebody who's afflicted with imposter syndrome, because you're now suddenly turning what is this fictional notion in your head and into something that's manifesting in reality. And that for me is the worst thing. So keeping control of imposter syndrome is important. Over the years, I've realized that on occasions that I've experienced this, this level of imposter syndrome, I have performed well. I have pushed myself. I have managed to take something that is arguably routine and something that I'm really confident in and good at doing, and making sure that I'm not, hitting a degree of mediocrity or of complacency, which can occur. And sometimes, errors of complacency can happen to the best of people. In fact, they normally happen to the people who are good at doing something. A pretty drastic example will be distracted driving, right? You may be somebody with 20 years of experience, but just one glance down at a phone when it pings you could lead to consequences that you do not want to play out. So over the years, I've realized that there is benefit in harnessing and being aware of this imposter syndrome and using it to just amp up the degree of awareness and of focus that you have on doing a task, which could arguably be something that you've done so many times and you're so confident in doing that you goof it up and you make an error of complacency where it's a silly, stupid mistake. I'll give you a silly example. Hitting the record button. Now, I've seen, not just me, I've seen many experienced cinematographers and camera operators just make that silly mistake. It doesn't require skill. You got to have the presence of mind to hit record at the right time. In fact, this is such a big deal that when you go into using more professional cameras, and as you go up the line, you have tally lights and different mechanisms that have been put in place to tell the guy it's recording now, because this happens quite often. There is a benefit to balancing and pulling on this tug of war of confidence and self-doubt and creating that lovely zone in the middle where you're focused, you're aware, while you are doing something that is arguably something you've done 100 times before, which obviously makes you susceptible to errors of complacency, where you can just make a silly mistake that even an intern would possibly not make, because they're more focused at that point in time. And there are days when I've gone about doing certain things, whether it be going on a shoot or writing something, where I didn't experience this imposter syndrome, and I have notably goofed up, and goofed up on such a stupid level that you're, really hitting yourself saying that's inexcusable. I feel that if this is something that afflicts you, you can definitely harness it to make things better. And in one way, I'm sure as a creative person, there's been times when you look back at a particular piece of work that you've done, maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and you're like, I haven't done anything better than that. And this is when you're being honest with yourself. This is not the world telling you something. It's you saying, that was good. I have not done good since then. I've not beat my own record. And sometimes my fear is, wait a minute, did I just peak? Is that the end of the line? I mean, does it not get any better from there? I find that harnessing this so-called negative energy of, imposter syndrome can help and combat that, because it gives you the ability to approach a task that you've done 100 times, but approach it with the freshness as well as the alertness and that little fire to say, I've got to prove a point, even though you've proved this point 500 times, but just to make sure that the 501st time is even better. And I honestly gain a lot of energy. I gain a lot of motivation from, this so-called negative syndrome. So that's why I really, really want to share this. If you have, an experience or, thoughts on imposter syndrome, please put it down in the comments. It'll be a great place to start a discussion. And who knows, maybe take this conversation further. If you relate to this kind of content and you like it, please subscribe to the channel, like the video. If you know somebody who you think would relate to this kind of content, share it with them. And yeah, that's it for me today.